Hi everybody, I am Hilary, as some of you actually probably know, and I am in the Hypatia Trust bunker, which is, especially COVID-19 proof. Yeah, of course, we're really disappointed that we haven't been able to meet. Places like Crescent Kerno are going to be shut. And many other archive places, which was so exciting, are also unable to, stay open. So what we really wanted to do is see if we can continue this project online in lots of different ways. And I really hope that the rest you're all kind of excited. I guess we thought that doing a video was a good idea because you kind of at least see me and get a feel of who I am and how enthusiastic I am to continue, and I hope that I can infuse you too. It's not so much fun obviously if we can't meet up, but we've got lots of other ideas of how we can keep in touch. So we need to kind of talk at some point about whether we want to use an online meeting forum like Zoom, or whether we just do a one-to-one. You can do that with me, or we can even telephone and talk in the good old way, or emails. So, there are at least ways we can continue. One of the other nice things I think is that we can put in place is that we can set up some archive, access to archives online for the group, for example, newspapers or whatever. So don't feel that it's just what you can Google. There will be other ways of accessing things. Then the other thing I wanted to just do, which I would have loved to have done on Saturday, is actually talk to you about some of the ideas. Because as I'm talking to other people, I'm getting a bit of an idea of how, areas of research we could look at. So I'm going to just spend a little bit of time going through that, and Florence, who's very clever, will intersperse photos, I hope. So I'm going to put on my glasses to make me look even more learned. And so some of the things that have been coming up for me have been, for example, Victorian solo singers. That's an area that we could look at. There's we know of a very famous one already called Fanny Moody, that you may have heard of. One of our researchers, Sue, is actually going to be looking at her, which is great. But there are others, and I have put a couple up on our Facebook page, so do keep an eye on our Facebook page. I've been talking to someone who's done a lot of research into like the really early women, like the 1700s, from stately homes. So I'm just going to have a look at my records. We've got people from the Pendarvis estate, from Coteal, from Tahiti, women who've been involved in music from way back in some of those stately homes, which I thought that would be really interesting. We've also, I put up on Facebook about women of the diaspora. So, we know that men went off and worked in mines all over the world. Well, the women did go with them too. And we've got one particular story of a lovely, a woman singer from Hale who went over to India. But obviously she's only one of many, that Australia or America, we could find some sources perhaps. We've also got obviously a plethora of women's choirs in Cornwall, and they could be of interest individually or as a group. We're looking at Penzance Orpheus, Stidion's Ladies, Mabel Ladies. They all contributed obviously a huge amount to Cornish music. And then in particular, which is, I suppose it's kind of my department, is the traditional music of Cornwall. That's my background really, in playing the traditional music of Cornwall, and just I love digging in the old books. And at home I've got a load of really lovely old books about all the different old Cornish songs, which again, I can help people look at. So we've got the obvious person is Brenda Wotton, who did a lot for folk singing. Sue, again, is going to be looking at her. But we do have, I was going to say traditional background. I mean, Padstow women mending nets, for example. An old lady from Treesmill, near Parr, who actually taught some of the old dances and songs, harvest songs. And we've got, Mrs. Heseltine, that's one of my favourites. She's from Camborne area, and she sang some of the old folk songs to the collectors. So what happens is you get the names of the collectors, like Cecil Sharp or Jim Thomas. Funny enough, they're men, but the women were the ones who actually, were doing the singing on some occasions. So that's really interesting. But also these men who've done the collecting, like Dunstan and Jim Thomas, what I've just discovered recently is that their daughters, funnily enough, kind of continued the work and also were quite involved in, for example, the Old Cornwall Society work. Now, the Old Cornwall Society has a raft of books that we could be looking at, and sadly, they're all in the Crescent Kerner Library. But I do have links to people. Merv Davey, for example, he's the archivist for the Old Cornwall Society, and that brings me on to the Gorseth. And there's a lovely lady called Janet down at St Ives, who is the keeper of the records for the Gorseth. And she said, she had quite a lot about women bards, musicians. We could look into that. So that's another area. Then, of course, you've got the classical music, orchestras, and we've got people singing in the Dutch opera, for example. We've got a few women's names. And what as I said, there's been people who've emailed me these ideas. So I can be emailing them back and going, so-and-so's in our group's really interested in that. Can I put you in touch? So you can see how we can talk to people without having to actually go and visit them. There's also the brass band tradition, and a lovely friend of mine, Richard Trethewey, told me all about his. Now, it's his aunt who was from St Dennis, and she was the first woman to play in a brass band at the Albert Hall, and that was in the 1960s. So, the whole brass band world would be very interesting to look at. Organists was another idea I had, because there is a lot of evidence that a lot of organists are the keepers of the music, of the chapel music, and a lot of them are women, or were women, and they seem to have held on to some of the older songs, the older carols and the older hymns. So that would be an interesting exploration. And somebody like Gary Tregiger, if anybody knows him, he would be really great for helping in all the Methodist world. We've also got, I found this really interesting, which is the Goonhaven Banjo Band. And my mother-in-law used to play with them, and she's told me of a couple of real amazing characters. One of them were twins who actually won a national banjo competition. Isn't that great? Love it. And finally, another idea was to just look at women who have really helped support and promote music in Cornwall. So there are, probably very well documented, there are the Radford sisters, which maybe you may have heard of. They set up the Radford Trust for help with all young musicians in Cornwall. And there was also Lady Mary Trefusis, who, as there's again probably quite a lot of information about her available, but she founded the Cornish Music Festival, and that was in the 1920s. So I've got on my list a good 30 odd women, but of course you yourself have probably got some of your own ideas. Those are the things that would be just great to share. One would be your research techniques, ideas for research, and the other, obviously, I really would love to hear what women you know about and what you're already thinking you might want to pursue. So I think I really hope that we can continue on this project, and that's as I said, that's why we decided to do this video, just to at least you could see me in person, even if I can't see you. And I really hope that we can stay in contact over the next few months. At least it's one thing where you don't have to wash your hands. Okay, so thank you. Good luck, everybody, and I hope I talk to you soon. Bye.